It was very much a symbolic, working with the sort of unconscious or collective unconscious, using the images and working in relationship, and where we're both trying to capture these concepts and these images and these, experiences, really. Welcome to Psychedelic Source, where wisdom meets practice in the evolving landscape of psychedelic medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Sandra Dreisbach, and I'm here to help you navigate the complex intersection of ethics, business, and personal growth in the psychedelic space. Whether you're a practitioner, therapist, entrepreneur, or simply curious about this transformative field, you've found your source for authentic dialogue, practical resources, and community connection. In each episode, we'll dive deep into the stories, strategies, and ethical considerations that matter most to our growing ecosystem. Let's tap in to our inner source of wisdom and explore what it means to build a sustainable and ethical psychedelic future together.
The information shared on this podcast, our website, and other platforms may be triggering for some viewers and readers and is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical, legal, or therapeutic advice. While we explore topics related to altered states of consciousness, we do not endorse or encourage illegal activities or substance use. Always research your local laws and consult qualified professionals for guidance. The content provided is, as is, and we are not liable for any actions taken based on the information shared. Stay supported and informed, act responsibly, and enjoy the podcast.
Artists are so important to expressing and understanding our unconscious, our creative expression, and connecting to our higher selves, all aspects, and the psychedelic source, you could even argue, right? And so in this episode, I'm very grateful to share with you artist Branden Singletary and my work with him. But I really want to highlight him as an artist. But I try and aim to be transparent about my work. And Branden and I worked on a special project called the Thyrsus, which is an oracle deck designed to help support people through transformative experiences that could include psychedelic journeys, but outside of it. And I really wanted to make sure we took some time together, Branden and I, to highlight him as an artist, to talk about our experience together, and to share that all with you. So that said, I hope you enjoy learning about Branden. Branden is an artist, of course, compelled to create worlds that forge a connection between the cosmos and human cognition. To achieve this, his work concentrates on psychology, philosophy, and natural sciences into a framework of patterns mapping different worldviews, aesthetic preferences, cognitive styles, and ways of creation. So you can see why he might be the perfect fit to work with on this particular more psychedelic or transformative oracle deck project. So with that said, I hope you enjoy this episode. Well, hi, Branden. It is so great to see you again, and so wonderful to have you on the podcast, and also in conversation to talk about you and your work, but also a bit about our project that we worked on together, the Thyrsus, if I ever decide how to pronounce it properly.
The Thyrsus, something like that.
Something like that. But Branden, maybe you could tell people a little bit about yourself and yourself as an artist.
Sure. My name is Branden Singletary. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, and my work primarily revolves around connecting human cognition to, well, I guess in a sense, the universe in a natural science sort of way, seeing how the different patterns in human cognition overlap with the patterns that are found all across nature, and the different ways of me going about that tends to vary in I
Could
guess
you
in a
explain
number
a
of
little
ways.
bit more about that? Like, what does that really mean to connect nature to the cognition of the universe? Is that what you said? Or to global concepts? So could you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's just because my work seems to revolve around how things move primarily and nothing else really. It's noticing how the different patterns and way things move, and it's like there are certain structures in nature that look similar to how a brain looks, and things similar to that. And, if I surmise that many things tend to move in more or less the same ways or in similar ways. And I don't know, it's just an interesting fascination that I had.
Well, and one of the things that we bonded around in the very beginning of working together, and maybe I should say, like, the way we met was even kind of entertaining to me because, like, I don't meet many artists via LinkedIn. Maybe it's just maybe I need more artist friends on LinkedIn. And maybe that's more about me than about you. But you outreach to me on LinkedIn, and I started looking at your artwork, which first of all, obviously I was impressed by, but then I was looking at some of your descriptions of other work, and you mentioned one of your favorite works was the Tractatus by Wittgenstein,
Yep.
which, like, it still makes me laugh when I'm wanting to talk about that. Could you say a little bit more about, like, what are some of, like, the inspirations, or, like, why philosophy? Like, and obviously I have an MA PhD in philosophy, so I'm totally biased, and I have spent some time or pain or suffering, whichever way you want to think about it, with the Tractatus. Could you share a little bit more about, like, what other things inspire you? Like, I get some of the pieces about having that connection of movement and the universe and nature and seeing the similar patterns. But there's also really a philosophy and, like, and sort of symbolism and meaning making that you do in your work as well.
Yeah. So with the Tractatus, it was discovering Wittgenstein's, I guess, biography while I was working on my book, which took on a very similar form to Tractatus. It was it came at pretty much at the exact time that it needed to come in. I was like pondering very much the beginnings of the work, which was all about
The
metaphysics and stuff,
world is
trying to lay
everything
the
that there is. Yeah.
yeah. And the first time I landed on his biography, I was like, this is a bunch of logic stuff. I don't really. And then I came back the second time. I was like, "Well, now wait a second. This is actually really interesting. Let's see what he has to say. The world is a language. I'm writing a book. This world, it's kind of like just sort of, it's a world of its own right. This is made out of language. Interesting. I'm going to see what more there is here. I didn't necessarily read everything, but I just kind of digested the words. I was like, he's saying the exact same things that I'm thinking. That's crazy. It already exists. I need to do it better." And that's kind of how that came about.
Well, and you
Other
really do create a
influences.
world, right? Like, sorry, I'm interrupting, but, like, you
Sure.
really do create a world. And I looked at part of your project, your one of your art projects that you were sharing with me, and sort of the world that you create. And would you say that that it's creating a world of a language and relationship?
Um, in a way, yeah. Creating a world in a sense that is legitimately and maybe even literally made out of language, and relaying it to the natural world that we inhabit. Yeah, it's like while I was making it, I was thinking, well, maybe the world is in a way some sort of spoken word of sorts, or a story of some kind in that sort of sense. Pretty interesting, but yep, that's kind of where I was at when I was making that one.
Now, what would you say is most of your work these days? I mean, obviously not including my project, because, like, I know it's kind of a different project, but how would you describe most of your artwork these days?
These days, I mean, it's still more or less the same. Trying to, well, I guess closer to refining the core ideas, because I've gone through many different interests, I suppose, and it is in the past it was about psychology and mapping out people's natural inclinations and patterns and all of that. Now it's taken a back seat, or at least that's taken a back seat, and now it's about just getting the philosophy right, making it feel less malleable, less flimsy, interchangeable. Because in the past it was very vague, I suppose. But
So was
yep,
it more conceptual in terms of people's psychology and in the artwork?
um, in a way. Yeah, I would say a little bit more conceptual. I did like try to map out some sort of a typology system of sorts, and again, that kind of disintegrated, it folded on itself. But yeah, I would like to have that come back around because it was a fun system, but I don't know. We'll see what happens there.
Well, I mean, regardless of whether you say it was flimsy or not, I love that that was part of the backdrop of your art and your relationship in the worlding that you were doing in your artwork, because and even the focus on psychology or the connection with nature or with movement. And these weren't things I fully didn't understand, I would have to say, when I was first really exploring your artwork. It was just that, I just really felt, your artwork really does have an energy to it. It really is expressive, and there's a lot more depth uh, to the work, not just in terms of the images themselves, but there is a sense of deeper meaning, even in the simplest of images, which is just really, at least for me, really phenomenal to get that conveyed. Like the sense of a world or a sense of, even if it's something that's a new object or something like that, there is a sense of you really are experiencing it in a sort of reality, even if it's a reality of its own. I mean, you don't have to agree or disagree, but I'm just talking about my experience and just experience here. So, like, the fact that this was part of the background, like, in some ways, for me at least, confirms like my experience, right? And for what's worth, people who end up listening to this, like, I wasn't, when the Thyrsus project started, I'd already created different terms, concepts, and it created basic images that I had hand drawn when I I first came up with the different concepts around trying to find a more symbolic way, imagery way, plus some basic words to help connect people to the experience of doing shadow work, journey work, the healing experience, hints of the hero's journey, but as well as like metaphors that you get in the psychedelic space or transformational space in general. Um, and when you came across my path and I started seeing your work and I saw the alignment we had about philosophy and then pieces about the psychology, let alone just resonating with your artwork, I'm like, well, I wonder if Branden would be open to working on this project. Um, what 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 did you think when I first talked to you about the ideas of the project? Like what 'cause you've like, and just for the record, like, you've never worked on any decks before. And for the record, I hadn't either. Um, but in terms of, like, it wasn't like you were, like, an oracle or tarot deck artist, and this is something you were looking to do or trying to find a project, or that I'd found you amongst people who are already doing these sort of things. We kind of, we're led to one another, and I'm just like, and I'd even entertained the idea of like, well, maybe I should work on the artwork more myself, but then it was becoming a barrier, and I just wanted these things to exist in the world. Um, but uh, but what were your impressions on the other side?
Yeah, when you first mentioned the project itself, I was very intrigued, and I mean, I guess there's not much more I could say beyond I was intrigued. The concept of making cards was something that well, I made cards before, just not tarot or oracle cards,
Right.
and it was I was like, yeah, you know what? Sure, let's let's see where this goes. I am, especially if it's just going to be, um basically taking a bunch of different uh, words and turning them into images, which is ordinarily what I already did anyway. It's like, yeah, this is going to be interesting. Let's see what happens.
Right, right, yeah. And I think we both had that. It's like, well, let's see, let's try this, right? And we didn't, and the deck didn't have a name to begin with. It didn't happen till all the images were created, which is an interesting thing. Well, I mean, everything except for the last images, I suppose, that once the name was figured out, then there were images for that. And we started, the very first image I believe you started working on was trust.
Yes.
And I
That was
can't remember why we picked trust. Maybe it just seemed like it was I honestly can't remember, but also I also appreciate the living metaphor that we were building trust with one another.
yep.
And
I think that was
and
the
you're doing the
reason.
first drawing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk about your process, like when you have like, you have like an image that I've sketched out. We've had a conversation about, what I'm trying to get at. And then you have the word, right? Trust. What was your process like from the very beginning?
Um, well, I would describe my process as kind of well, maybe boring re uh to re-explain, but it's like well, whenever we would talk about the words in our calls, I would be like cobbling together the image in my mind as you were talking about it. And it's by the end of the conversation I either had it or it was like half formed. And the ones that were half formed were just sort of I just let them sit in the back of my mind for a little bit. And that's and the ones that were fully formed, I pretty much just immediately started, working on them when the call was when it was done. And yeah, that there wasn't much. There's not much more to recount there. But
No, but I mean, I think
yeah,
it's worth mentioning because like some of the images were pretty much like a fully formed concept, and then there were
yeah,
some that really weren't. I think trust in the original only had, I think, the hands, and I think it had the person and a crumbly something. But like I don't think it didn't really have I don't think it looked I'd have to go look at my own drawing. Maybe it'd be worth pulling out some of the
but
cards
sure,
that I had, and maybe I will before we're gone. Uh, but but that one was like it had a person that was like falling ish, and then it had hands that were kind of catching it. But the part of the idea was that I was like, "Okay, but they can't see they don't know that the hands are there." I'm like, "Okay, like, they gotta have, because like, it's gotta be kinda like that trustful experience." I remember talking about it. But that has to be really clear that what they're standing on is not stable and is falling apart,
yep, yep,
right?
yep. Right. There were
A
very tiny tweaks throughout a number of the images. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. Those things I can't imagine had that much of a process. When it comes to, from my perspective, I just sort of made the edits. But yeah, no, each card had its own sort of trajectory, if you will. Some definitely were just, they came out perfect in a way, but yeah, a lot of them just sort of, they had a journey they had to go through, which is kind of funny in its own right.
and and we had our own journey with them too, like, because,
Yeah,
like, I
yeah,
usually, I mean, I think trust you might have just done 1 and then we were do but I think in general, like, I would say we do, like, 3 at a time that you would kind of
yeah.
sketch out.
I think the
We
first
would
three
usually have,
were
like, an hour-long conversation, and and in all humility, like, I'm like, and graciousness, you would often I go off on these crazy tangents sometimes, and I'm kind of these, like, deep philosophies about something or something esoteric or even certain directives like, "Okay, there's a new moon and such and like coming," or like, like, "You need to can you make it on this day?" And you're like, okay, okay."
Yep, I got you. Okay, I understand.
But I really appreciated that, at least in terms of working together in relationship, how open and receptive you were, and just hearing me trying to, like, explain all these things that were going in my mind, and you would often take notes, like certain words or certain things, or, like, would sketch us something, and then the next week, you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna take an attempt," and then you would show me, like, the rough images, and then we would look at them and then go over them, and then sometimes if I was giving feedback on something, I'm like, "Oh, no," like, "No, it can't be like that," or like, "Oh, this image we need to break." Remember, what was it, what turned ended up turning into, I think, 3/4 images, depending upon how we wanna count.
Right.
There
It
was,
was like holding space, I think.
holding space. Holding space, um, started off as I think the image, that I drew is literally just the hands, which is, like, so funny because, like, If anyone goes back into things that like I've done little videos on, I did this little short on TikTok a year ago, at least from this time, where I was joking like, "Is this holding space?" And then the irony is that I ended up doing a drawing about having it be like this, but but the physical act of this is not holding space. Um, but the card, like the original card had just like the hands, and then as you drew it, like I'm like, okay, like you ended up having we had a person inside, and then there was also a sword that was coming towards the person, but the hands are blocking it. Um, and then at some point I'm like, oh no, I think we really need to have that person by themselves. And then it's like, yeah, but I don't wanna lose the complete image, which was, like, the hands plus the body plus the sword, but I'm like, "But I think that's a protect," or something like that. I don't even think I was using the word protect at the time.
Yeah, not at the time.
And I also had you flip the body in a different direction because it was, like, fetal position going towards or away, and then there was the sword elements, like, oh, at some point, like towards the end, like towards the later ones, something maybe that's worth noting for people is like there were a certain set of core images plus single words for the most part that had already been drawn, written on these index cards. I could probably, I have them actually right here. Unless you find one that like actually looks like one of the things. This is not one of them. Like some of them like never actually end up. Oh, here, I'll pick this one. This one isn't the best, but like this one's allow growth, which ended up evolving into the growth card, which still has a vine,
True.
right? But if you look at what if you look at the growth card, it literally just has a spiral vine, and it grows off on both directions, which wasn't a part of the original image. Um, but but, like, is something that you brought, but there were other elements, like, there's this other card, this one, which isn't its own card in the deck, allow growth and expansion, but um, contract and expand, that ended up being captured in the growth card, right? So, like, and then there's even growth edge, which I don't think there's much of a sense of an edge in that one, but there is a sense that goes off the edge of the card. Um, and so like these are actually like three different cards that end up combining into one single image, but with the primary image being growth, right? um, what is there any particular cards that you felt were more challenging to do, like or
Hmm.
images or a combination of images?
Yes, 7 facets was really hard. I was stuck on that for like weeks. It's like how am I gonna fit 7 figures in here? I don't know. But then I was like, okay, well,
And that's
now
the
that we're like,
choose card now. It's the choose
it's
card.
choose card. Yeah,
At some point it was fastest. I can't remember what the original name of that card was.
it didn't
Um,
have an origin.
and maybe it didn't, but I'm like, but like, okay, we need one where they're inside the jewel, and then I'm
Yeah.
like, it has to have at least seven. It has to have 7 facets, and I'm like, okay, but we got to get a sense like they're in the shadow and they're having to choose,
Yep.
and yeah, because
It's
you went through a couple
yep.
different like full iterations of that one.
Yeah, I think so. It was a rough one. I think that was the one that was the most challenging. All of the other ones weren't as bad. No, I
Well,
don't
and it's
think so.
ironic because, like, you ended up having the experience we ended up having a choose experience in the development of choose, right?
True.
I guess one of the things that you wouldn't necessarily know, unless you were part of our journey together, like, on the cover of the card deck, or what's planned to be the cover of the card deck, because like, at the time of this recording, it hasn't been put in print yet, but, the intended cover image with the shadow and the self kind of dancing in front of the Thyrsus. Um, the dancing shadow itself were originally in that choose card. That was one of the early designs for those facets, which I think is also really kind of cool that is even part of the evolution. In some sense, we had the sort of end result choice hidden. You can't see that that's what ends up being picked. Uh, but we did pick it, and it got put on the cover, and we literally pulled it out of that image, and
Yep.
then the image had to exist with having hints of that interaction, which you kind of see more at the top of the image.
Oh yeah.
And then you see the shadow mostly reflected in the base of that facet, and I haven't checked did we end up with 7 facets? I should double check, but I think we must
Uh,
have.
maybe. It was some. I was just trying to play with the geometry of the jewel or gem or crystal, and just sort of see where the forms like fall out of. I don't know if there are 7 figures in there, but
I
there's
know, I'm just pulling it up. I think this is like, I'm like, "Is this the fa" I'm like, "Oh, no, I'll show this." Like, it's gonna be hard to show it this way. This is, like, not the best way
sure.
to show this image. Maybe we'll supplement it. So this is the growth one.
Yep,
Actually, am
yep,
I
yep.
holding it upside down? I'm like,
No, no, no. You had it
yeah,
right. Yep.
yeah. And then this is the the one that's choose, and I think that's pretty close to, like, the final one, if not the final one.
Yep, yep.
And you can kinda see the self and shadow here at the top, and then the shadow here. And let's see, I'm gonna take a quick look and count, and it looks like, well, if you count the base facet, the one where they're looking into is a facet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, yeah, it's 7 if
Yeah,
you include the base facet, I think, unless you think of some other ones as being suggestively 2 or something like that, or parts.
yep.
Um, what was the easiest one to do? Wait,
Hmm.
no, you can't talk about the void and the
Oh,
threshold
no,
and
those don't
and
count.
and the light ones.
No,
And
those
for the
aren't
record,
really.
like, like this is like the ones that are like a solid color, right? This one is light, which is kind of funny. It is framed. It is intended to be the but and void is all black, and threshold, and this is I mean, it doesn't print very well, but and threshold is all gray. But but give
Uh,
outside of those 3 where there's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
basically just, choosing the right shade, what was the easiest one to do?
Easiest ones. I mean, it would have to be one of the 20 more elemental cards.
Yeah,
Maybe
that one of the
one of
elementals.
those. Maybe. I mean, just because it was one of your favorites, fire might be one of the easier
I do
ones.
love fire. I do love fire. I have it right here. This fire. Well,
Yep.
we have to show it in a better light. That's sorry, I couldn't resist. um Yeah, I mean, and honestly, because like, I mean, like, even just like an elemental concept of fire, like, I mean, because everyone's seen a candle wick or a light wick like this, but it's just like you get a real sense of aliveness. I would say from all of your images. But I really feel like it's like, given that the thing wasn't actually on fire and it's just an image of the fire, that it had a sense of living fire. What would you credit? And I'm glad that the elemental ones would have been easier. I actually remember talking about rock, right?
Oh yeah,
And you're like,
rock.
"Oh, I'm good at doing rocks."
I'm good at doing rocks. I draw rocks all the time. Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, I'm at the point where I'm thinking I'm totally crazy. Like, "Can you draw me a rock?" Which, here's rock. This is rock. I'm like, it almost has an asteroid like feature to it, which I kind of like, that it has like suggestive of, like, it could be any kind of rock. It could be a meteorite rock,
Yep.
but it is a rock. Well, and that's the thing, and I guess that's it. Like, maybe if we're talking more about the evolution of the deck, and the images for the deck, like, we started with those core images that were sketched, that you've added. Like, we're saying, like, mine were very paltry by comparison. They were suggestive of what I was thinking, feeling, receiving in relation to what I wanted to capture. So that it was almost like, picture notes. Um, that you definitely built off of, and there were a lot of things that you added that like weren't things I had said that you just, you brought forward in the card themselves. Like we had mask and we had unmask, which unmask ended up becoming um emergence, which is this
Yeah.
one here. But and I mentioned this one because like I don't think I told you to have one eye open and one eye sort of partially open like this. And when you came back with this, I'm just like, oh my God, that's perfect. Right? Because there's this sense of like when you get your awakening, or you gain clarity by looking at shadow and having that internal insight or transformation, and then you come out and emerge. And like the eye, you can't really tell well in this image, but it has this sort of, I think I remember giving some feedback saying like, I want it to look like that newborn, eye image, but you'd already made a sort of slitty in the sense of it being an open, barely open eye slit. And and then I don't think I had a hand. I think you added the hand to
I
it. I
think
can't
so,
remember. I'm gonna
yeah.
have to look, but but I don't recall that. And I thought, what made you choose to have the yourself? Like what brought that up for you in terms of the unmasking or the emergence card?
Um, I admittedly cannot remember. I do recall that there was a hand. We just had to change the angle of it. I
Oh, maybe
think.
that's what maybe it was. I can look.
Yeah.
Oh, we can have these reflective moments, you know? I mean, although I
Yeah.
think about other cards, like things that like we don't have like a curiosity card, but there was this curious card that kind of reminded me of this one. Um, but like it it wasn't something because I know you got a lot more cards than we ended up turning into cards.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But they all ended up, I would say, I'm like trying to dig in here to these cards. Like here's a good one to maybe ugh, here's a good one that may be a good comparison one. There's this is the reflective card, right? And this in some ways there are elements of this, like if you think about the one that had the I'm like, why can't I think what it's called? We're calling it the facets card, but it
Choose.
the choose card. There's elements of that because there's elements of mirroring in there.
Yeah.
But this was mostly captured in what got turned into reflection, I believe, which was the one in front of the waterfall. So like that element is still there. So like in terms of it, instead of it being reflective or know thyself, I mean, know thyself shows up in some of the descriptions of some of the cards. I know in one in particular, I'm gonna have to go and look at the descriptions to see if that's the one I paired it with. There was an element of learning my language, learning the symbols that I had kind of created, like and learning a bit about the ideas and concepts I was trying to create. And then you translating that, but then definitely adding in your own imagery and your own language in combination. Um, given your own work on trying to create your own, worlds and language and metaphors, what was it like working with mine?
I found it
So no,
interesting
it's okay. I've already
because
paid you. Oh wait, I found it now. Here's the one.
yeah,
Uh, this is the one that I was saying. Like it still has the reflective and knowing thyself, but it ended up being quite different in some ways. But then the image was captured somewhere else.
yeah, it was interesting because I'm not like it's like I have some slight attunement to I guess symbolic or esoteric language, and it's a realm I'm again partially familiar with. I did dabble with tarot a little bit, but not that much. And a whole bunch of other things similar to it, I suppose, just to be brief. But it was interesting because you are far more attuned to it than I possibly ever will be.
Oh,
And
that's my kind.
yeah, and taking the concepts and moving into something that can be communicated through an image is creating imagery is something I often refer to as my primary language, just speaking in images. Yeah, it's I don't know. The overall experience though, it was fascinating because whenever you did go off on your tangents, I was still learning things. It was still educational to me. I was like, that's really interesting. It's just all of it is a very fascinating enterprise in its own right. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's worth mentioning, right? Like, because like even though there were the beginning images and like and there are overlaps that happened in learning each other's image language and the concepts and what I was going for and co-creating together. As I got to appreciate, how you languaged things, um, in the symbols and what you saw in the same words or the same ideas, but they were coming through your ways of conceptualizing them. But later on, right, we went from these more complex images and more complex themes to um what we're calling sort of the elementals, right? It's like, okay, I'm like, okay, I want to make sure we were talking about this, like, I want to make sure we capture all of the elements of each of the images we've just made really complex into a simple language of the individual elements so that people can get the elements. Uh, which again wasn't originally part of the plan. It's something that happened. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe it was like I don't know because like it very much was I mean, even for myself, it was very much a symbolic, you know, a working with the sort of unconscious or collective unconscious and using the images and working in relationship and where we're both trying to capture these concepts and these images and these I mean experiences really, right? But how would you say like the more complex images for you differed from the sort of simple language pieces, like when we get to things like rock, which we can laugh at again, or fruit, like literally fruit, but fruit, like we had boon. Yeah, I have it here. We had boon before we had fruit. But I'm like, okay, if we have boon, then we need leaf and we need fruit. Right, but we already had plans for, I think I don't know whether we had a plan for hand at that point, but hand ended up being in because you see hands, right? But yeah, what would you say for you was when we started the beginning part of the project versus like as we'd gotten through the complex images and we started getting to the elemental forms underneath them?
Yeah. When we like that, it was an interesting turn. What immediately came to my mind was that the elemental ones could be used to, in a sense, hint at the creation of unique cards to fit specific situations that the intricate ones wouldn't necessarily be able to. And yeah, I was definitely up for that sort of concept because I guess tarot cards don't necessarily have that ability.
Well, they
Um,
don't tend to
well,
go.
they don't
I mean,
get
at least I in
granular,
my
right?
interpretation, I wouldn't say that they go elemental,
Yeah,
even though the
no.
elements are there and represented in the images.
Yeah.
Most of the images stay, I would say, for the most part, in complex form.
Yep.
Um, and then not that we're reducing to these simple images, but um, trying to basically help people take apart the images for themselves into elemental forms.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Well, we also talked about like some of our favorites images. And maybe I don't know if your favorites have changed since the beginning, but what would you say today are your favorites? Like your top
Ooh,
3
today. I mean, the one
today.
that keeps coming back to me is Goddess. I still like Ascend. And
Yeah.
the third one, Source. I would say Source is pretty good. I
Yeah,
liked
and
it when it
Swords was
was
one of
the
the
moment
earlier
it
ones.
was made.
Here's Source.
Yeah, that's like the
This is one of
third
the I think
card
that
that
was
was
like was that
made.
number 2? Was this the
It was
second
three.
one? 3? 3?
I
What
think
was
so.
2? So if 1
Two
was
had to be
Trust.
Reflection.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
two
no, it
was
was. I think you're right. Yeah,
reflect.
this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
this reflection. Yeah, and it's interesting. So we go from trust to reflection to source, right? And you mentioned goddess. So like I've always loved goddess, the sort of Pandora's box hinting at, and then ascend. But what were you gonna say about ascend
Oh, I wasn't gonna say anything. That was
or
that.
source?
I
Was
was
it
just
source?
source. Was I gonna guess like
I
about
know I
source?
interrupted. Like that's just like I'm just like.
The thought proved, alas, it happened.
So your top favorite ones would be ascend,
Goddess and
source.
source. Yep, those would be my favorite ones. Oh yeah, I think I was just saying that I liked it pretty much the moment it was made.
Oh, I love that.
It's one of
The
the
send
fully
one.
formed ones, technically. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know one thing I always said, um, and like on the like there are a few things I would keep saying, but one of them is like okay, this is supposed to be like the high vibration experience, or like the highest expression, or the um experiencing this sort of like journey, but with it kind of like the best outcome, right? Like the strongest experience or the highest experience of going through these experiences, right? So like ascend ended up being really important in that respect, because that's part of where you end, for the new beginning, right? Like you ascend, right? You know, like you go from that trust, right, with the hands and the crumbling mountain, type of thing, to literally not only a strong sort of mountain that you've been able to climb, but you've literally like gotten to the full ascension experience, and that element of consciousness. So I think there's even suggestions of that by being connected to source. But yeah, I think sometimes like the elements or the words or what the intentions are behind the cards. Uh there really is an energy with each of the cards that you've been really able to successfully bring across, like in ways that I know I don't feel like we bring across in the same way personally. Um, what about other choices? Like maybe you could talk a little bit about how you even draw the images and the medium.
Uh, so the images are made digitally, but they are hand drawn on a tablet. It's the main I guess aesthetic that it took was me trying to find a way. Well, I guess this came before I even met Sandra here, but it's like I wanted to try and have the digital process of hand drawing the images be similar to how I make graphite or charcoal images traditionally, and I was like, how would I go about doing that? And I eventually figured it out. I puzzled it out, and it makes it so that drawing is a little less annoying for me, because generally I tend to get very irritated whenever I am drawing because it just takes so long to get like I have the image in my head. I just want it to be on the page already. And yeah, I just, I made the process quick enough so that I don't get agitated by my own process, because yeah.
But I also love the fact that it is hand drawn, right? Which is like it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to explain, like these were always digital images, right? They were never physical images. They were always digitally created, but also they were always hand drawn,
Yep.
which I think and it does, and I really would say that these images really have the sort of hand drawn experience, and they definitely have like that edge of charcoal, especially when you look at like how you shade things. I mean, maybe this isn't the best example. Like this is leaf, right? And I could probably do it this way. This is the more upright position, and you get that sense of like you can almost see this as like a charcoal that that's on here, um in terms of like the feel, or on reflect, right, where you have that sense of gradient gray, but the stark, like you get it reminds me, actually, me thinking about Ansel Adams. I know, it may be a lot to say Ansel Adams and really, but like, like no pressure as an artist. But one of the things Ansel Adams said about capturing the spectrum of light, part of what he was aiming for, from what I understand, was, trying to have the detail that showed up things that were, whether they were far away or close in focus. You got the whites looking white and the blacks looking black, and you had the detail in both, right? So like you have the experience of the detail in the white, and you have the, like, if I think it was like, I'm trying to remember, it was like this horse one that he says was his best photograph, and partly was because of this detail he was able to get in that horse from far away. But I think one of the beauties also of the digital drawing, or about how your art comes across, like you get that detail, and that sense of depth in both the whites and the darks and the full spectrum of light. And I don't think it ever occurred to me, personally at least, that not only that you could get a sense of a drawn piece of artwork from digital work in the way that your work does, but also that full spectrum of light and dark, and having the richness of the detail in both. So I just want, I mean, I guess I'm just taking this moment of praise and adoration. Like, one of the things, like, I appreciate about this particular project and working with you on it, and given the subject of, like, the shadow and the self, and doing shadow work, and that internal journey towards, like one card is like the dark night of the soul, right? And like, how do you get that sense of real dark? I mean, I can hold it up, but you're not going to see the detail in this one at all. Especially with like my printer little these are all little home prints. But like, yeah, I mean, even in the lightness and the sharpness of the edges of the person, you get that sense of tenderness and vulnerability. And it really is just a simple drawing of or even I don't know whether and maybe this is a good curiosity question real quick, like, did you draw this on a black and then add the white, or did you go the other way around? Was it a
Yeah,
negative, or was it a
it was a white on black. Yeah.
it was white on black? So
Yep,
so
yep,
and
yep.
I think, and I'm like, that would be my guess, but it's like, I don't know, because like you can do negative shade painting and things like that, like same thing in drawings. Um, but what what other ones were? What did you get out of, personally, out of going through, um like an experience of drawing the different drawings and reflecting on reflecting, right? Like, um, how was your process in terms of like your own internal experience of the ideas or the concepts, integrating them as you drew them?
Yeah. I mean, generally, it was just a basic process of integration. Putting the images together was a matter of fitting pretty much your entire. Some descriptions were larger than others, I suppose, because those created certain cards created more, I guess, in a way, tangents than others, I suppose. But all of the any sort of information that you gave me about any specific card, I tried to condense that as much as I can into one image. That's taking all of the different elements that were possible things that could be in the image, and filtering out which ones were the most relevant, or the ones that elicited the most excitement from your own descriptions. And those are the elements that stuck around the most. And reflecting on the cards individually, I don't know. I guess I never really did that. It's like I never really forced myself to interpret things unless someone asks for my opinion on what the interpret it. I guess you're doing that now, technically, but it's
Well,
like
but I mean, but you said before, like, you speak, you've had this experience of like your language, your more organic language is one of images,
sure, yeah,
right? And so if if the image comes first and then the words in a different way, right? We're different. Was the experience of even conveying those images different?
hmm,
Like
the
you said with the
experience,
Sen, for example, that like you felt like you liked it right away, right?
yeah.
Is there any ones that you just didn't really like as much? I mean, you don't have to
Um,
say you don't like it. I mean, like, but like you could say, like, I know we already talked about which ones were more challenging. I know one of the more
oh yeah,
involved cards was Judgment.
oh yeah,
That one was a thing.
that
And I
one
think
was
we went through a few
complex.
iterations on that one too.
I think so.
Yeah.
Let me see. I had something to say, and then it went poof. It'll be back soon enough. But it's the process of tripping cards. It was, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, let's pick an example. Like what about roots? Like, I mean, I did sketch out some roots when in the roots area. I think I have it right here. Okay, like this is obviously my very like okay, the very not very roots like from my roots.
Oh
I'm
sure.
at roots and I'm making notes about ancestors and so it's like but I'm like trying to get a sense like I want the sense of the connecting of the roots. Um uh but this is what you ended up drawing, right? Um and there's an element of like okay, I'm drawing roots.
Yeah. Um, when it came to the elemental cards, I tried to not get too uh abstract with it. It was like very because an element is just an element. It's like just make the element. Don't do anything crazy. Keep it simple. Just knock out the idealistic form of what this element is. And that's how they turned out, I suppose.
What surprised you the most about the project overall? I know at one point you're saying like there's no way I would have done this many.
Oh yeah, yeah. I said the number of times. It's like, no, if it was my project, I would have like burnt out at like 20. I would not know how to get 40 at all. And I probably wouldn't have mapped out however many cards I wanted to make. It's just like I'm just gonna make a series. Because that's what I did with I guess last year's series of works that I made for myself. Well, I say last year, maybe that was almost 2 years ago. Anyway, I digress. It's like, yeah, I made maybe about 80. I wasn't planning on making 80. I wanted to make more, but I was like, I don't know how I can get more out of this. I'm just gonna stop. And yeah, and that's how that would have gone. And yeah, no, I guess the main thing that I'm surprised of was just the fact that just having such a great collaborative process was I guess that in itself was eye-opening. That's my main takeaway from this entire project. Collaboration isn't so bad after all, because I usually just
Yeah.
do things on my own.
Yeah, and here we have our collaboration card.
Exactly.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that because, like, I will say, like, I really, I mean, like, I absolutely, I know you've heard this from me before, but I absolutely, it was a real joy and delight, working on all this with you, even when it was challenging and like there were some stuck parts for both of us or one of us or like whatever, you know, we laughed a lot. I definitely had lots of, like, side, quest conversations that, like, I don't know how this is gonna tie in, but, like, I feel like I need to explain this.
Yeah. Those are the moments I was looking forward to. I was like, I'm gonna learn something new. Awesome. I'm ready.
Yeah, he didn't stop me, so it's like it was probably like yeah, yeah, all sorts of things. I mean, like I know, and then odd requests, like like I think this one was done at equinox, at the winter equinox, fall equinox, I should say, fall equinox, um, and other things were like. I'm like, okay, like I like this one. Like, okay, I need you to have like it needs to seem like a little bit shiny and a little bit more wet.
Like
And
fresh, ready to
and I
be
have to seem
plucked.
voluptuous, like a breast, but like with like but it just needs to feel very, fertile, abundant, like or um
No,
what
not peach, but
yeah, yeah, like judgment. I'm like, okay, it could be. sexual suggestive, but like you're not, I gotta keep it, keep it in the PG realm. But like we can know that that's what's happening.
You don't have to scream that that's what's going on. But
um, um, what would you what are you looking right now? Since we haven't printed the cards and I have written the descriptions for them, but like we're at this point now where like, the images are done, the words are done, descriptions are done, like in the next bit, like we're kind of like almost like clean up and like other little pieces. What do you most look forward to? What is your hope? I guess maybe I should say something. What's your intention or your hope for the cards, for yourself or for someone who's like picking up the deck for the first time?
when it comes to my art nowadays, I just hope that they get something out of it because I've more or less given up trying to like control what the experience of someone is. It's like that's not really it's not really how it's supposed to go, and it's also really really hard to do that. So I'm just like, just I hope you get something out of it, whatever that is. If it's good, it's well, good. If it's bad, well, I hope you make your way out of that. I hope you recover from whatever bad experience you acquire from that sort of thing. It's like yeah, I'm at least I try to remain at least somewhat conscious of what an image can do to someone because historically my images have had the tendency to be very powerful and I never really intend for them to be. I'm just sort of making the image and I just hope that whatever an individual gets from the images, I hope it's primarily good, and if it's bad, I hope they find a way to overcome it. Maybe they become better in the process by overcoming whatever
Well,
bad thing
and that's
happens.
and in all honesty, in fairness to you, like if there's a card that's challenging, like if it's challenging to look at like repair, like
Oh
it
yeah,
had rupture and repair were actually a part of a combination of this,
oh
right?
yeah,
But like you'd see this as very destructive, right? Or like, oh, this like, that's a little disturbing or you think about or maybe death or something like that. Maybe someone might be disturbed at literally facing death in the death card. I'm, like, trying to find the image, um but, like, that's not your I mean, not the quality of the art. It's
yeah,
the
yeah.
journey that the image or the experience is taking them on. I could show them the Lovers one,
Ah, sure.
right, which still has death in it. Um, there's still death. Oh, here's
There's
death.
still death,
I thought
pure death.
right. I mean, and I actually still love that, like, it almost is suggestive of him or her or they, smiling,
Yeah, it's true.
right? Um, but, um, but I feel like I think your images are really powerful, and I think each image can be a journey in and of itself, and as much as, reflection is the reflect card, I think all of them inspire reflection, meditation, transformation in a supportive way. I really do think, regardless of what other people's experience of these cards are, I mean, working on these cards with you has certainly been a transformative experience for me, and I learned a lot about even my own, unconscious, subconscious, collective unconscious, processes by working through them with you and talking about them with you, and even seeing my own concepts visualized in different ways and getting more depth and detail. Um, but even having all the surprises along the way and the journey that this whole entire process has been, I don't know what I don't even remember how I described it to you at the beginning. I don't know if you recall. Um, I remember feeling a little hesitant to say like, okay, so I'm working on these cards. Like, how much would it cost to do like a whole bunch of the, you know?
I was like,
Uh,
"Oh, man, that's, I don't know, that's, it seems kind
Um, but I'm just really grateful, like, no matter what happens with the cards in real life for other people or how many people end up using them or not using them or what people receive out of them, I know that I received a lot from this process and that it's been a real gift. Um, and working with you as an artist, Brendan, and getting to know you, and your girlfriend.
Right.
um, and the richness of what you bring forward and what you help to co-create with me. So I just want to take this opportunity to just thank you for joining me on this journey to the point that we've gotten and what we've been able to co-create together.
Yes.
And neither of us is shadow or light, by the way. Like it's well, maybe we're a union of opposites of sorts, but like, but I interrupted you. You're saying something.
Yeah, no, it's like I'm glad that you took me on the journey in a way. It, as I said before, it was eye-opening in many ways. Yeah, I have not much more to say beyond that. It was great.
One thing I realized is I was going through and coming up with the different descriptions for each of these cards. Um, I actually redrew some of them as part of my process for coming up with with the messages with each of the cards. And I realized like, oh, I could actually have people, redraw some of them for themselves as a part of them connecting to that aspect of themselves, because like, the left brain analytical word part of our, is part of like that self-constructy worlding sort of self versus like the speaking in images like you're saying earlier, and tapping into that unconscious or in the collective unconscious and these symbols and images that like we all have an idea of fruit. It doesn't matter what you think that we mean by fruit, right? And I realized, well, maybe it'd be nice to have like a journal that could actually have them not just have space to write words of reflection or about each of the images as a part of their process, but also possibly redraw some of the images, because you use different parts of the brain that may access ideas, concepts, symbols that would come up that you may not do just by braining it literally, like not thinking like, what do you think this, like the Rorschach sort of saying like, you see this moon card. It says moon, or like this one doesn't have the words, but like, you see the moon, like, what does this bring up for you? What is this? What is this? What do you associate with this? Oh, sliver,
Not the
toenail,
moon.
like whatever you
Yeah,
like. Right, but like, like, but if you actually you draw it, like there's a way that you connect into the images and the symbols that are really different, um, or the experience of it, that's different. If you were to revisit any of these images, or or to or if you were to create a card that doesn't exist, are there any thoughts of what it would be? You don't have to make a new card,
Mm.
don't
No,
worry,
no, no.
but
Like no more
like.
machines.
Do
Um,
you feel complete? Like, do you feel complete from this project? Do you feel like we've said the main things that need to be said?
I believe so. I do believe so. I don't think, I wouldn't, I definitely wouldn't add any more cards, even hypothetically. I wouldn't add any more. And I don't think I would change any of them either. I think they all have led to a kind of gestalt that shouldn't really be disrupted at this point. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
I mean,
and that's usually what I aim for, a good gestalt that, operates on its own. Yeah.
yeah, I think when we finally got Thyrsus, which wasn't again, it wasn't the deck wasn't named before,
Yeah.
and it came up for me after you completed all the central images, and then you drew it and we named it and like, okay, that's like I was literally like, this is the name, and like, okay, you got to draw the thing or whatever. Um, And that was the moment for me where I felt like the sense of completion and even though like there were still things to do or like there was still smoothing over of images or like detail things. But I would also say the same thing. Like I definitely feel a sense of completion. I could see there being different chapters or different things related. Um, but I just love that even though a lot of tarot oracle cards are different, multiple colors, because it's like about shadow and light and that journey, and that relationship. That's part of what came up with when Thyrsus came out, was realizing it was really about, not just bringing them in relationship, and full integration, but really working together and uniting in this sort of dance.
Yep.
So, and I appreciated the dance that we did in creating in this really creative process. I would definitely say creative and co-creative process that I don't even think we had a projected date of when we thought we'd be done. We didn't have a
No,
deadline,
there was no
per se. We did have a certain pacing that, that was done for like the roughs, and the refinement, and we basically met every Monday since about September, I would say.
well, met in October. Yeah, pretty much since October.
Yeah.
Yeah, every Monday, pretty much.
Yeah, and this is, for anyone new to listen to this later, like, this is, like, officially our last official Monday meeting and our closure, so this is part of our integration and
Yep.
reflection, of the experience. I know there'll be more, but,
Oh yeah.
I'm just glad that you took the time with me to talk about the cards and our journey and our experience and about your artistry, um, and are there any final thoughts or things that you wanna share?
Um, no, not at all.
You're like, "I am
That's
complete.
I am complete.
I am done." And there'll be information on, like, how to reach out to you or contact you if you wanna work with Branden as an artist. Couldn't recommend him more highly, of course. And hopefully there'll be other little products that we'll be able to spin off that if you just, like, really appreciate certain cards or other things like that. But thank you again, Branden. I really enjoyed it, and I think you this project as well definitely has got me sold on the power of creating with someone else in a unique way,
Yes,
you know?
same.
Yeah. I think I'm more of a private artist and to co-create in this way over a long period of time. I know you were the artist, but it's just a really beautiful, powerful thing, and I think that's also in here too, is the joy and experience that we had working together. So,
Absolutely.
thank you again, Branden.
And thank you.
Thank you for joining me on Psychedelic Source. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and share with others in our community. And if you're a psychedelic practitioner, therapist, or coach looking to identify blind spots in your practice or determine next steps for moving it forward, take the first step by visiting psychedelicsourcepodcast.com. Until next time, remember, start low, go slow, and stay connected to your source.